Hello, welcome to the summary videos of course number 9, namely Assessment for Language Learners. So, after 11 modules of content, now is the time for us to recap and review important issues that has been covered throughout the course. First of all, let's take a look at the list of modules we have learned so far. Module 1, Introduction and Basic Concepts of Assessment. Module 2, Fundamental Principles in Assessment. Module 3, Assessing Language Knowledge. Module 4, Assessing Language Skill. Module 5, Adopting, Adapting, Developing Language Tests. Module 6, Developing a Good Language Test. Module 7, Assessment Tool, Games and Quiz. Module 8, Assessment Tool 2, Project-Based Assessment. Module 9, Self-Assessment and Peer Assessment. Module 10, How to Give Effective Feedback. Module 11, Teachers-Made Assessment, Linking Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment. Module 12, Wrap-Up. In order to give you a better revision, I would like to divide those listed modules into 3 parts, namely Part 1, Concept and Principle in Assessment, Module 1 and 2. Part 2, Summative Assessment, Module 3, 4, 5, 6. Part 3, Formative Assessment, Module 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, Part 1, Concept and Principles in Assessment. In this part, there are 2 aspects I'm going to mention again. 1. Key concept in assessment. 2. 5 fundamental principles in assessment. 1. Key concept in assessment. They are assessment itself, evaluation, measurement, and testing. Among the 4 concepts, the first 3 are often mixed up. Let's start with assessment. Assessment refers to a variety of ways to collect information, usually from multiple sources, about a learner's language ability or achievement. Assessment refers to a variety of ways to collect information, usually from multiple sources, about a learner's language ability or achievement. Assessment can either be done by the teachers or the learners, but the information collected is related to the learners and their performance. How about evaluations? Evaluation involves looking at all factors that influence the learning process, such as syllabus objectives, course design, and material. Evaluation is based on information that may be the result of assessment. Evaluation is the value, interpretation, and judgment of the data collected in a decision-making context. Now let's move on to the third concept, measurement. Measurement is the quantitative description, which refers to any procedure that allows us to attach number to characteristics of a class, of people, object, system, or event, etc., according to a set rule. Finally, testing. Testing is a part of assessment. It can be a formal or informal ways of gathering information about students' performance, knowledge, or skill. Although tests and exams are very common in education, there are some drawbacks of this type of assessment. 2. 5 fundamental principles of assessment. According to Brown in 2010, there are 5 major principles of language assessment, namely practicality, reliability, validity, authenticity, and watchback. First of all, in terms of practicality, it refers to the logistical, down-to-earth, administrative issue involved in making, giving, and scoring an assessment instrument. Secondly, Speaking of reliability, a reliable test is something consistent and dependable. There are four main types of reliability: student-related reliability, rater reliability. In this, we have two subtypes, which are inter-rater reliability and intra-rater reliability, test administration reliability, and test reliability. The next principle of assessment is validity, which means measuring what should be measured. In this, we have five types of validity: content-related evidence, criterion-related evidence, construct-related evidence, consequential or impact validity, and finally, phase validity. The fourth major principle is authenticity, which means the degree of correspondence of the characteristic of a given language test task to the features of a target language. Last but not least, the fifth principle is watchback, which refers to the effects of testing on teaching and learning, or the effect tests have on instruction in terms of how students prepare for the test. Part 2. Summative assessment. In this part, there are three key points I'm going to mention again. 1. Assessing language knowledge. 2. Assessing language skills. 3. Adopt, adapt, and develop a test. 1. Assessing language knowledge. Language knowledge comprises of many components. However, within the context of English language assessment in Vietnamese school, three most important aspects of language knowledge are examined. They are grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciations. 1.1. Assessing grammar. In short, assessment tasks for grammar can be divided into three main types: selected response, limited production, and extended production. Now, we are going to break down on each type and look more closely. In selected response type, there are three tasks that students often encounter, which are multiple choice, discrimination, and noticing or conscious raising tasks. In limited production tasks, the input in the item is language information. Like selected response tasks, the input could be a single sentence or a longer thread of discourse, and they are divided into three main task types: gap filling, short answer, and dialogue completion. The third type of assessment task for grammar after selected response and limited production is extended production. The purpose of extended production is to obtain large amounts of language from the test taker and to allow for more creative construction. In general, it is divided into two types: information gap tasks and role-play or simulation tasks. 1.2. Assessing vocabulary. Since there are two types of vocabulary, which are receptive and productive vocabulary, this part will deal with tasks for receptive vocabulary and tasks for productive vocabulary. Tasks for receptive vocabulary. Example of tasks to test receptive vocabulary can be seen in those following exercise type: vocabulary in a one-sentence context, high-frequency work; vocabulary in a one-sentence context, low-frequency word; vocabulary matching exercise; and word associations. In terms of tasks for productive vocabulary, there are two ways to adapt. 1. Fill in the blank exercise. 2. Selective deletion clause. 1.3. Assessing pronunciation. How should we assess pronunciation? The ideal way of testing pronunciation is to actually listen to the learners. But since this is not always possible or suitable, the alternative discussed in this lesson can be used for testing segments and word stress. Following are 14 exercise types that teachers can make use when it comes to pronunciation assessment. Tasks to help assess pronunciation can be listed as follows. 1. Dictation. 2. Discrepancies. 3. Sound discrimination. 4. Sound comparisons. 5. Sound definition. 6. Same sound. 7. Odd man out. 8. Gap filling. 9. Sound recognition. 10. Regrouping. 11. Matching. 12. Silent letters. 13. Word stress. And 14. Intonation pattern. Assessing language skills. As a matter of fact, there are 4 main skills that we are going to look at: reading, listening, writing, and speaking. 2.1. Assessing reading. Tasks to help assess reading skills are speed reading graph, reading log, and oral book report. 2.2. Assessing listening. Moving on now to assessing listening, I'm gonna describe some listening test procedures. Initially, dictation. The teacher reads aloud a text of approximately 150 words, phrase by phrase. The learner writes each phrase as they hear it. This kind of test has been used as a test of general language proficiency. Quite similar is partial dictation. The learner have an incomplete written text in front of them. As they listen to a spoken version of the text, they fill in the missing part on the written text. Most commonly used method of all is text with question. The learners have a list of multiple choice questions in front of them while they listen to a text being read or a recorded dialogue. As they listen, they answer the question. 2.3. Assessing writing. In designing a test of writing, it is important to consider the 6 qualities of usefulness proposed by Bachman and Palmer: construct validity, reliability, interactiveness, authenticity, impact, and practicality. While it may not be possible to maximize each quality, test developers should strive to maximize overall usefulness of a test by giving careful consideration to the qualities of usefulness and determining for each testing situation an appropriate balance among them. 2.4. Assessing speaking. When designing speaking tasks, it may be useful to distinguish between pedagogic or language-focused tasks, which are created specifically for certain types of language use, often to enable learning or assessment, and real-life or target tasks, which stimulate language use outside the classroom, according to Newman in 1989. 3. Adopt, adapt, develop a test. When considering adopting a test, teachers should refer to the test checklist. In using the checklist, teachers should look at the test manual provided by the publishers and begin by considering the general fact about the test. What is the title? Who wrote it? Where and when was it published? Step to adapt a test. 1. Administer the test in the particular program using the appropriate teachers and students. 2. Select those test questions that work well at spreading out the student or are efficient at measuring the learning objectives in this particular program. 3. Develop a shorter, more efficient revisions of the test one that fit the program purposes and work well with each student. Some new questions may be necessary. One is similar to those would work well in order to have a long enough test. And 4. Evaluate the qualities of the newly revised test. Part 3. Formative assessment. In this part, there are 4 key points I'm going to mention again. 1. Online formative assessment tool. 2. Project-based assessment. 3. Consideration in self and peer assessment. And 4. Giving effective feedback. Now, 1. Online formative assessment tool. There are 5 main types of formative assessment tool that teachers can resort to, namely quick feedback, lead quiz game, integrated presentation and quiz tool, formative assessment with videos, and the types with no device for students. 2. Project-based assessment. In order to have a successful project-based learning lesson, teachers together with their students need to follow 7 phases. Phase 1. Introducing the driving question. Phase 2. Introducing the culminating challenge. Phase 3. Developing subject matter expertise. Phase 4. Doing the culminating challenge. Phase 5. Debriefing the culminating challenge. Phase 6. Responding to the driving question. And Phase 7. Summative assessment. Now it is time to evaluate a project. In PBL, students learn much more than the content. How to work with others, solve problems, present their idea clearly to an audience, and learn from their mistakes. In other words, what teachers need to evaluate is not only what they learn, but how students comes to learn it. Therefore, PBL is normally assessed formatively. However, in practice, project-based learning products are still used for summative assessment. 3. Consideration in self and peer assessment. There are 10 considerations for teachers when conducting self and peer assessment in class, which as 1. Build a climate of trust and collaboration. 2. Take it one bit at a time. 3. Keep everyone in the pictures. 4. Provide mark-free rehearsal opportunities. 5. Provide, or more ideally, negotiate really clear assessment criteria. 6. Make peer and self-assessment more meaningful. 7. Keep it simple. 8. Allowing enough time. 9. Make self and peer assessment an integral part of learning. 10. Emphasize the crucial relationships between criteria, evidence, and self-peer assessment. Now, 4. Giving effective feedback. There are 2 models of effective feedback that teachers can always resort to: PIPS model and PIE model. PIPS stands for step of giving corrective feedback, which as praise something specific, improve, positive overall praise, and supply uplifting commands. Meanwhile, in PIE model, P for positive, I for identify, and E for example. That is the end of the mini lectures on Assessment for Language Learner course summary. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.